A late spring thunderstorm rolled across Denver with a kind of force that rattled windows and blurred the edges of every streetlight. Rain hammered the windshield of Gabe Turner's aging sedan, the wipers squealing as they tried, and mostly failed to keep up. He had been driving since early morning, trying to salvage what little income he could after a week of rideshare shifts that had gone from bad to worse. His back ached. His eyes burned. His patience had evaporated hours ago. Most nights, the city's glow gave Gabe a strange kind of comfort. Tonight, it only reminded him how small he felt in it, how small he'd always felt. No family to call, no savings to rely on, nothing anchoring him except a car that coughed every time he accelerated and a job that paid less with every new policy update the app pushed out. He tried not to think about Sam Peters, his former taxi boss, but anger flickered anyway. Sam had sabotaged him on his last week, assigning him broken equipment and logging false complaints so Gabe would quit before earning his longevity bonus. Switching to rideshare had been Gabe's only choice. But even that wasn't enough now. Not with rent rising. Not with bills stacking up. Not with the sense that he was running out of road in every possible way. He turned onto a narrow street near West Colfax, vision smeared by rain and the glare of passing headlights. The storm deepened, thunder rolling like distant explosions. Gabe leaned forward, trying to see through the downpour, and that was when a figure stepped directly into his lane. Jesus! He slammed the brakes, tires screeching on wet asphalt. The car lurched, skidding just enough to send a jolt through his chest. His heart pounded as he gripped the wheel. "What the hell are you doing?" The woman didn't move. She stood frozen in the beams of his headlights, soaked to the bone, hands pressed protectively around her stomach. Only when she lifted her face did he see the tears mixing with the rain. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't reckless. She was terrified. Gabe shoved the car into park and stepped out just enough to shout through the storm, "Hey, are you hurt?" Her voice trembled. I just need somewhere dry. Just a minute. Please." He hesitated, just long enough to notice the curve of her pregnancy, the exhaustion etched into her expression. Fury ebbed, replaced by something heavier. He gestured to the passenger door. "Get in. It's warmer than out here." She climbed inside, water dripping onto the worn floor mats. Her breaths were uneven, hands shaking as she tried to settle. Gabe drove slowly toward a better-lit intersection, giving her space to gather herself. After a long, quiet moment, she whispered, "My name is Tara. Tara Donovan." He nodded, unsure if he should say more. But she continued anyway, as if holding the words and had become impossible. "I was released from prison today." The confession hung in the air like another clap of thunder. Gabe glanced at her, uncertain, startled, but something in her eyes kept him from recoiling. She asked to be dropped near a bus stop. Before she opened the door, she leaned toward him, her voice soft but eerily certain. "Your life is about to change," she said. "Don't push it away." Then she stepped out into the rain and disappeared into the storm, leaving Gabe staring after her, unsettled and unable to shake the feeling that something irreversible had just begun. The storm didn't let up overnight. By early morning, the clouds still hung low over Denver, and rain kept sweeping across the streets in uneasy waves. Gabe Turner had barely slept, replaying the moment when Tara Donovan stepped out of his car and vanished into the storm. Her voice, quiet but certain, lingered in his head like the echo of something he wasn't meant to forget. "Your life is about to change. Don't push it away." He didn't know why the words bothered him so much. Maybe it was the fear in her eyes. Maybe it was the strange calm in her voice. Or maybe it was the uncomfortable feeling that he'd just brushed against something bigger than himself. But morning meant bills. And bills meant work. Gabe accepted a high-paying airport pickup on the rideshare app, the kind of request that rarely came through on a weekday. If he could land it, he might salvage what had already been a brutal week. He accelerated onto I-70, windshield wipers on full force, the storm pushing back against every mile he tried to gain. Traffic crawled. Accidents dotted the shoulders. The entire city seemed frozen under the weight of the weather. Gabe kept checking the time on the dashboard, anxiety twisting deeper with every passing minute. By the time he reached the terminal, the passenger, an impatient businessman in a tailored coat, was already pacing with luggage at his feet. He glanced at Gabe, then at his watch, and shook his head. "You're late. I requested another driver." "It was the storm," Gabe tried, but the man had already canceled the ride. The notification hit instantly. Cancellation rate increased. Risk of deactivation. As if he needed one more thing hanging over his head. By the time Gabe made it back to his apartment, exhaustion coated every thought. He dropped into the sagging chair by his small kitchen table and opened his laptop, scrolling through job listings that felt more humiliating with each entry. Warehouse shifts, restaurant dishwashing, overnight stocking. Nothing stable, nothing promising, nothing that felt like a way forward. He closed the laptop, rubbing his eyes. The next morning, Gabe drove to his old taxi company to return a final piece of equipment, a battered dash camera he hadn't realized was still in his storage box. He wanted the last thread of that miserable job gone from his life. But Sam Peters, waiting with his usual smugness, made sure it wouldn't be simple. "Well, look who finally showed up," Sam said loudly, loud enough for a couple of drivers to snicker. "Couldn't resist coming back, huh? Turner." "I'm just here to drop this off." Gabe placed the camera on the counter. Sam tapped a few keys on his office laptop and turned the monitor so both men behind him could see. "Funny thing, Turner. Your GPS logs showed some interesting stops your last week here." He clicked through the data, each red pin stabbing the map. "Look at this outside a bank. Late at night. Twice." Gabe's jaw tightened. "I dropped someone off." "That's it." "Sure you did." Sam smirked. "Looks more like you were hiding cash runs, violating company policy, maybe even doing under-the-table pickups." "I don't work here anymore." "You did when those logs were recorded. And this," Sam said, tapping the screen, "is enough to get you blacklisted. No taxi service in Denver will touch you after I send this out." Something in Gabe finally snapped. The humiliation, the storm, the job he hated, the endless grind of trying and failing. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just turned and walked out into the gray morning, past the drivers who stared after him. Outside, leaning against his car, he closed his eyes as Tara's voice surfaced again. "Your life is about to change. Don't push it away." For the first time, he wondered if she hadn't been warning him, but preparing him. The days that followed bled together in a gray blur. Without steady taxi income, Gabe Turner tried to keep himself afloat with rideshare work, but the storm had only been the beginning of his bad luck. The algorithm punished him for the airport cancellation, offering mostly low-fare, short-distance rides. Some nights he drove for hours and barely earned enough to cover gas. Denver felt colder, even when the weather cleared. He avoided looking at his dwindling checking account balance, avoided tallying how many bills were past due. Each shift reminded him how fragile his life had become, how easily everything could slip through his fingers. Late one afternoon, he dragged himself up the worn stairwell to his apartment on the third floor. His neighbor's door cracked open almost instantly, as though she'd been waiting. Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, 77, widowed, sharp-eyed, peered out with a knowing smile. "Gabe, honey, I thought I heard you. Don't you dare run off. It's my birthday today." He blinked, surprised. "Oh, happy birthday, Mrs. Brooks." "You're coming to dinner," she declared, swinging her door wider. "I made pot roast, and you look like you haven't had a real meal in days." Normally, he might have made an excuse, but something about her tone, gentle, firm, unmistakably caring, wore down the resistance in him. He stepped into her warm little apartment, immediately greeted by the smell of slow-cooked beef, onions, and rosemary. The table was already set for two. A single candle flickered between mismatched plates. "I didn't expect anyone else," she said lightly, adjusting her sweater. "My children don't stay long anymore. Busy lives, you know how it is." He sat, feeling suddenly awkward but grateful. They talked about small things at first, the building's stubborn heating system, the stray cat that prowled the alley, her memories of teaching English at a middle school decades ago. As they ate, her expression softened. "You're a good man, Gabe," she said quietly. "Kindness follows people like you. Always has." He forced a small laugh. "Doesn't feel like it lately." "Maybe not today," she continued, her voice almost melodic. "But someone is going to bring light back into your life. You've earned that much." The words struck him harder than he expected. First Tara, standing soaked in the rain, whispering about a life-changing moment. Now Evelyn, calmly predicting someone who would alter his path. Two warnings, two prophecies, two strangers telling him the same thing. It felt like the universe was mocking him. After dinner, he washed the dishes despite her protests, then wished her a good night. But as he stepped back into the dim hallway, the weight of everything settled over him again. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was drifting toward the same loneliness Evelyn lived with, older, forgotten, surviving on small rituals and fading hope. Back in his apartment, Gabe sat at the edge of his bed, staring at the cluttered floor. The silence felt too large, too permanent. He thought again about the pregnant woman from the storm. Tara Donovan, former inmate, eyes full of fear and exhaustion. Yet something else, too, something he hadn't been able to name. Those eyes haunted him. They held a gravity he couldn't ignore. A warning, maybe, or a plea. Gabe lay back, staring at the ceiling as the room darkened around him. He didn't know what was coming, but for the first time in years, even through the fear, the exhaustion, the bitterness, he felt the slightest tremor of change in the air. And that terrified him most of all. The next 2 weeks slipped by in a muted haze, each day folding into the next, until Gabe Turner could barely tell them apart. With rideshare income unpredictable and bills piling up, he took on temporary shifts at a distribution warehouse on the edge of Aurora. Backbreaking work that paid just enough to keep him 1 month ahead of the landlord. Life became a strict, unchanging cycle. Wake before dawn. Drive 30 minutes east. Scan into the warehouse. Lift, stack, load, repeat. Clock out. Sit in his car and stare at the steering wheel, too tired to start the engine. Then drag himself through another rideshare shift, scraping for whatever fares the algorithm tossed his way. Every night ended the same, stumbling into his apartment, collapsing on the bed, waking up sore and starting over. The bleak repetition eroded him slowly, grain by grain. By the end of the first week, his hands stayed swollen from carrying freight. By the end of the second, his thoughts felt thinner, worn down to nothing but survival. Through it all, he kept expecting, hoping maybe to see Tara again. He didn't understand why. Their interaction had been brief, strange, and unsettling. Yet her soaked silhouette in the headlights, her trembling voice, her cryptic warning, they hovered at the edge of his thoughts like a half-remembered dream. Some mornings, when he waited at a red light, he imagined spotting her on a city bus, head lowered, clutching her stomach. Other times he thought he saw her in a supermarket parking lot or sliding into the back seat of someone else's rideshare. But every time he blinked, the image vanished. Just his mind playing tricks. Denver was full of people. She could have been anywhere if she was still in the city at all. Still, her absence gnawed at him. Work, sleep, drive, repeat. The pattern hardened, unbroken. Even the small warmth he'd felt during Mrs. Evelyn Brooks's birthday dinner seemed distant now. Gabe passed her door each morning in silence, too tired to knock, too ashamed to admit how quickly he was unraveling. Loneliness clung to him like a second skin. By the 14th day, he found himself staring blankly at the warehouse clock, unable to remember the last time he'd spoken to someone for longer than a few minutes. His world had shrunk to routines, aches, and the quiet hum of exhaustion. That evening, after finishing a double shift, 10 hours at the warehouse, for more driving, Gabe trudged up the stairwell, gripping the rail with a shaking hand. His legs felt like wet cement. His clothes were stiff with sweat and warehouse dust. The fluorescent lights in the hallway buzzed faintly, the sound drilling into his skull. All he wanted was to collapse. Maybe microwave ramen. Maybe sleep without dreaming. He reached his apartment door, fumbling for the keys. Then, a sharp knock echoed from behind him. Gabe froze. It was late, past 9. No one visited him at this hour. No one visited him at all. The knock came again, softer this time, but insistent. His pulse quickened, a thrum beneath the fatigue. For a brief, foolish second, he imagined a silhouette in the rain, a woman clutching her stomach, whispering warnings meant for him alone. He turned slowly toward the sound. Someone was standing on the other side of the door, and whoever it was, they were waiting. The hallway light flickered once before steadying, and as Gabe Turner opened the door, the breath caught in his chest. Tara Donovan stood there, but she wasn't the woman he remembered, not the drenched, trembling figure who had stepped into his headlights on West Colfax 2 weeks earlier. This Tara looked composed, collected, almost unrecognizable. Her clothes were clean and neatly fitted, dark jeans, a soft gray sweater stretched gently across her stomach. Her hair was brushed and tucked behind her ears, still damp from the drizzle outside, but no longer stringy or tangled. Even her posture had changed, straight, deliberate, steady. The fear that once lived behind her eyes had eased, though not completely. A different kind of tension lingered there now, something controlled, contained. "Hi, Gabe," she said, her voice calm but edged with exhaustion. "I'm sorry for showing up like this. I've been looking for you." He could only stare. "Looking for me?" "For 2 weeks," she whispered. "Ever since that night." Gabe stepped aside automatically, as if pulled by something beyond logic. She entered quietly, her hands folded protectively over her stomach. The apartment felt smaller with her inside, the air heavier, charged with questions he couldn't begin to form. "Can I sit?" she asked. Yeah. Of course." He scrambled to clear a stack of mail from a chair. She sat slowly, exhaling as though she hadn't rested in days. "What happened to you?" he finally asked. "You look different." "The shelter helped," she replied. "A shower, clean clothes, a place to sleep." Her smile was brief, brittle. "But the rest, the part that matters, that's more complicated." Gabe stood awkwardly in the kitchen, unsure what to do with his hands. "Do you want something? Water? Tea?" "Dinner," she said softly. "I know that sounds strange, but I haven't had a real one since I left the shelter this morning. And I don't want to talk until we're sitting down." There was something in her tone, a seriousness that left no room for argument. He reheated leftover pasta, embarrassed by how meager it looked. Tara didn't complain. She ate slowly, methodically, as if every bite steadied her for whatever she needed to say. When the plates were pushed aside, she folded her hands on the table and met his eyes. "Gabe, I owe you the truth. All of it." Her voice trembled for the first time. "But I need you to understand something before I start." He waited. "What I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult, and it's going to sound unbelievable." She paused, swallowing hard. "But everything I've done, everything that's happened has led me here, to this moment, to you." The kitchen felt suddenly colder. The hum of the refrigerator faded into a distant buzz. Gabe sat completely still, sensing the weight behind her words. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'm listening." Tara looked down at her hands, then at him again, her gaze steady, determined but threaded with fear. "That night, when you nearly hit me on Colfax, you weren't supposed to be there," she said. "None of this was supposed to cross your path, but it did." She took a breath, a deep, bracing one. "And now I need to tell you why." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "And once you hear it, Gabe, nothing in your life will ever look the same again." For a long moment, Tara Donovan didn't speak. She sat across from Gabe Turner in the dim kitchen, her fingers laced tightly, her shoulders stiff, as though the truth she carried weighed more than her body could hold. "When I told you the truth would be difficult," she whispered, "I meant it." Gabe nodded, unsure whether the tension in his chest came from fear or the gravity of her words. "Start wherever you need to." Tara inhaled slowly. "You know my last name." "Donovan," she said. "My father, Edward Donovan, founded a mid-size energy company based here in Colorado. He built it from nothing. Pipeline infrastructure, solar fields, supply networks. He was tough, but he was fair. And he trusted me." Her voice wavered. "I was supposed to inherit the company one day." She paused, blinking back a memory so sharp it seemed to cut through her. "Then he remarried." She said the name like a cold draft entering the room. "Linda. Linda Donovan. She came into our lives like a quiet storm. Charming, polished, strategic. And she hated me the moment she realized my father didn't see her as his successor." Gabe listened silently, the pieces beginning to align. "When Linda had my half-brother, Austin, everything changed. He grew up idolized, entitled, the golden son." Tara's jaw tightened. "And when Austin got older, he and Linda worked together to push me out. Board meetings without me, contracts rerouted around me, decisions made behind my back." Her breath hitched, "but they couldn't get rid of me. Not completely. My father wouldn't allow it." Gabe leaned in slightly, sensing the sharp turn coming. "Then I discovered the fraud." Her eyes darkened. "Massive, systematic. Money funneled through shell companies to make Austin look brilliant. Deals forged under my father's name without his knowledge. And when I confronted them," she said, voice shrinking to a whisper, "they struck first. The retaliation had been swift and brutal. Documents planted, signatures forged, police notified." Tara remembered the flashing lights, the cold cuffs, the look in Austin's eyes. Satisfaction paired with something even colder. "They framed me for embezzlement. Millions," she said. "And with the Donovan name, the press tore me apart before the trial even started." Gabe swallowed, stunned. "I was sentenced to prison." Silence settled between them, heavy and unbroken, until Tara's next word shattered it. "Gabe, something happened inside." She looked down, as if ashamed of speaking it aloud. "A correctional officer, someone who should have protected inmates, targeted me, watched me, cornered me, and eventually, he forced himself on me." Gabe's stomach twisted. The room seemed smaller, colder. "That's how I got pregnant," she whispered. "Not with one baby. With two." She rested her hand on her stomach, gentle, protective, trembling. "I'm carrying twins, and they're due sooner than the hospital ever predicted. They said stress might accelerate everything. I'm already feeling early signs." Gabe didn't move. Couldn't. A numb shock spread through him like winter seeped into bone. "And while I was inside," Tara lifted her eyes wet with grief, "my father died." The words landed like a blow. "They told the press it was a heart attack. But I know Austin. I know Linda. My father started questioning their operations shortly before he died. He wanted external auditors. He wanted transparency. He wanted me cleared." Her voice cracked, "and that made him dangerous to them." The kitchen's quiet hum filled the space where her breath faltered. That night, the night you found me in the storm, I had just been released. No money, no home, no allies. I couldn't go to a shelter and risk Austin finding me through public records. I couldn't go to the police. They would never believe an ex-convict accusing her wealthy family. Her gaze locked onto Gabe's with raw vulnerability. So I chose you. He blinked. Me? Why? Because in the rain you didn't look away, she said. You were the only safe person I found in this entire city. The only one who didn't treat me like a threat or a story. She drew a shaky breath. When I said your life was going to change, Gabe, I meant it literally. And for the first time since she began speaking, Gabe understood. Her prophecy hadn't been metaphorical. It had been a warning and a plea. For a long time after Tara finished speaking, neither of them moved. The weight of her confession lingered in the tiny apartment like a fog, dense, unmoving, impossible to ignore. Gabe Turner sat across from her, elbows resting on the table, trying to steady the flood of emotions swirling inside him. She wasn't just desperate. She wasn't just scared. She had been hunted, betrayed, cornered. And somehow, she had still found her way to him. Tara wiped at her eyes with the edge of her sleeve. I know I've dropped all of this on you at once. I know it's too much. Gabe shook his head slowly. No, it's just a lot to take in. Her breath trembled. I didn't want to involve anyone, but I didn't have anyone left. The words hit him harder than he expected, maybe because he understood them more than she knew. He leaned back, staring at the faint cracks in the ceiling. You're not alone in that, he said quietly. She looked up. What do you mean? Gabe hesitated, a long, private hesitation he rarely allowed anyone to see. But something about Tara's presence, her vulnerability, her unfiltered honesty, cracked open a door he kept tightly shut. I grew up in foster care, he said. Bounced between homes my whole childhood. Never knew my parents. Never really stayed anywhere long enough to feel like I belonged. Tara's lips parted in surprise. I turned 18, he continued. Aged out of the system, and that was it. No one called. No one checked in. No one cared. His fingers tightened around the chair. I've been on my own ever since. A soft, broken sound escaped Tara's throat. Then tears, quiet, shaking tears, ran down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. You don't have to be. But I am, she insisted. Because you deserved better. And because, when I met you that night, I thought you were just another stranger. I didn't know you knew what it felt like to have no one. Their eyes met, hers shimmering with empathy, his softened by the unexpected warmth spreading between them. Two lost souls, two people abandoned in different ways, and for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt entirely alone. Tara took a shaky breath and reached into her bag. She pulled out a small, worn envelope, protected by an inner plastic sleeve, and set it gently on the table. There's something else, she said. My father left this for me. Before he died. I don't know how he managed it from inside the house with Austin and Linda watching him like hawks, but he did. She slid the envelope toward Gabe. Inside was a printed statement from a private financial institution, an account under Tara's name only. The balance made Gabe's breath hitch. This is a lot of money, he said quietly. It's everything he could hide from them, Tara replied. Everything he could get out before they took control of the company. He wanted me to have a way to fight back, to survive. She lifted her eyes. But I can't do this alone. I need someone I can trust. Someone who won't disappear the moment things get dangerous. Gabe sat still for a long moment. Her words, her story, her pain, all of it pressed against the part of him that had spent years sealed off, untouched. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a fighter. He was just a man trying to survive. But Tara looked at him as if he was the only safe harbor she had left. Gabe, she whispered, will you help me reclaim what's mine? Not just the company, The truth. He exhaled slowly, deeply, and then he nodded. I'll stand by you. The next week unfolded with a steady, deliberate tension, like the tightening of a bowstring before release. Tara Donovan moved with purpose now, no longer drifting from shelter to street, but charting a path toward reclaiming her life. Gabe Turner stayed close, not out of obligation, but because something in him refused to leave her standing alone ever again. The first step was hiring an attorney. They met Daniel Mercer in a glass-walled office overlooking downtown Denver. He was in his mid-40s, sharp-voiced, sharp-suited, and sharper-eyed, someone who understood corporate warfare better than most soldiers understood battlefields. He listened as Tara detailed her imprisonment, the fraud, the framing, the suspicious death of her father. When she finished, Daniel leaned back, steepling his fingers. You're fighting two powerful people with deep political connections, he said. Austin and Linda Donovan won't roll over. But you have something they didn't expect. He nodded at Gabe. A witness on the outside. Someone they couldn't manipulate. Tara glanced at Gabe with quiet gratitude. Daniel continued. If we're going to win, we need evidence. Real evidence. Financial, digital, behavioral. And we need eyes on the Donovans. Gabe swallowed hard. I can do that. And so he did. For days, Gabe followed Austin and Linda across Denver and Aurora. Slowly, carefully, like a shadow moving through traffic. He trailed Austin to high-end restaurants and backroom meetings, observing patterns, nervous phone calls, whispered conversations, documents exchanged with men Gabe didn't recognize. Linda traveled between the company headquarters and a private brokerage office, often carrying files her assistants weren't allowed to handle. Gabe kept detailed notes, license plates, addresses, times, faces, names overheard in passing. At night, he delivered everything to Daniel Mercer, who analyzed the financial trails with a clinical precision that scared even Tara. The company's bleeding money, Daniel explained one evening, spreading documents across the table. Millions routed through subsidiaries that didn't exist a year ago. Austin's signing off on everything. Linda's approving expansions that don't make economic sense. Tara stared at the papers, anger tightening her throat. They're killing my father's legacy. No, Daniel corrected softly. You're going to save it. But they needed a place to operate, somewhere safe, somewhere stable. Somewhere Tara could carry her pregnancy without fear of Austin's reach. So she used the hidden inheritance, a modest 2-bedroom condo in Capitol Hill, not luxurious but warm, sunlit and anonymous. They moved in quietly, carrying what little they owned up the narrow staircase. The moment Tara crossed the threshold, she exhaled as though stepping into a future she had almost lost. Feels strange, she murmured, hand on her belly. Having a door that only we can open. Gabe nodded. You deserve a home, Tara. They settled into a careful rhythm. By day, evidence, meetings with Daniel, quiet strategy. By night, cooking simple meals, repairing leaky faucets, sharing small confessions neither had spoken aloud before. They weren't a couple, not in the romantic sense, but something tender grew between them regardless. A softness, a warmth, a shared gravity that pulled them closer each day. Sometimes Tara found Gabe asleep on the couch, his jacket still on, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. She would drape a blanket over him, her hand lingering for a moment longer than necessary. Sometimes Gabe heard Tara crying in the bathroom late at night. Fear, grief, or the weight of twins pressing into her ribs. He didn't intrude, but he stood quietly outside the door until the sobs faded, making sure she wasn't alone. Their partnership was no longer just strategic. It was human, fragile, necessary, real. Two people with nothing to lose, standing together in a war neither should have had to fight. And the Donovans had no idea what was coming. The storm had passed days ago. But the air around the Capitol Hill condo felt charged that afternoon. Heavy electric wrong. Tara Donovan was resting in the bedroom, the twins pressing against her ribs, her breath slower than usual. Gabe Turner was in the kitchen, sorting through the surveillance notes Daniel Mercer had asked him to tighten up for court filings. A sudden, violent pounding rattled the front door. 3 strikes, then 3 more. No hesitation, no uncertainty. Gabe's stomach tightened as he crossed the living room. When he opened the door just a crack, a tall figure shoved forward, trying to force his way inside. Austin. Gabe blocked the door with his shoulder. What the hell are you doing here? Austin Donovan, the polished air, the golden sun, was unrecognizable. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, his eyes bloodshot with panic and rage. You're hiding her, Austin spat. Open the damn door. She doesn't want to see you. He shoved harder, but Gabe held firm. Behind him, Tara's faint movement stirred in the hallway. Gabe stepped outside quickly, pulling the door shut behind him. If you want to talk, Gabe said sharply, we're doing it somewhere else. Austin's jaw clenched. Fine. Your car. Now. Gabe led him down the narrow stairwell to the curb where his aging sedan sat. They climbed in, Gabe in the driver's seat, Austin in the back like an unwilling passenger, pacing in a tight circle of agitation. He didn't waste a second. You don't understand what you've done, Austin snapped. You think you're helping her? You're not. You're putting both of you in danger. Gabe twisted in his seat. Danger from who? You or Linda? The name hit Austin like a physical blow. He exhaled, shaking. Linda, she told me to get rid of Tara. Permanently. Before the board starts asking questions about the money. Gabe's chest tightened. So you admit it. The fraud. The shell companies. All of it. Austin stared at the floor, shame creeping into the cracks of his expression. I didn't create the scheme, he muttered. Linda did. She said it was temporary, just until the company stabilized. But then the money started disappearing faster than even she could hide. Gabe's voice hardened. And Tara was the easiest person to blame. She was already fighting us. Austin snapped. Meeting with auditors. Digging into contracts. Linda said she would ruin everything. And then his voice cracked. Then Dad started asking questions too. Gabe stilled. Austin pressed both hands to his head. He was supposed to sign the quarterly statements, but he refused. He said something smelled wrong. He wanted a full investigation. And then he died, Gabe said quietly. Austin's silence was answer enough. You think Linda was involved, Gabe said. Austin's breath trembled. I don't have proof, but she was the one who insisted on changing his medication schedule. She was the last one with him that night. And the next morning, she already had the death certificate paperwork filed. Gabe stared at him, disbelief turning slowly into a sickening clarity. Austin leaned forward, voice breaking. I never wanted it to go this far. I never wanted Tara hurt. But Linda, she isn't done. If Tara goes public now, Linda will come after her. And you. Gabe opened his mouth to respond, but his phone rang. A single, sharp sound that sliced through the tension. Tara. Her name flashed on the screen. He answered instantly. Tara. Her voice was a thin, terrified whisper. Gabe. Something's wrong. A sharp gasp. My stomach, it hurts. I can't. Hold on. I'm coming. The call cut off. Gabe was already throwing open his door. Austin reached forward. Is she? Get out of my car, Gabe snapped, adrenaline flooding his chest. Now. Austin stumbled out. Gabe didn't look back. He didn't care about confessions or fraud or corporate warfare. Not in that moment. The only thing that mattered was Tara, and she was in trouble. Gabe Turner had never driven so fast in his life. The streets of Denver blurred past him, traffic lights, storefronts, streaks of color sliding into one another as he raced down Spear Boulevard toward Denver Health Medical Center. Rain sprayed from the pavement in thin silver sheets, and the siren of an ambulance somewhere in the distance echoed like a warning. Beside him, Tara Donovan writhed in the passenger seat, hands gripping her belly, breaths short and desperate. "Gabe," she gasped, her voice breaking. "It hurts. I can't." "Hold on," he said, forcing calm into his tone even as panic clawed at his ribs. "I'm getting you there. Just keep breathing." A red light flashed ahead. Gabe checked for cross traffic, then accelerated through it, heart pounding. He didn't care about tickets or cameras, or anything except the woman suffering beside him and the two fragile lives she carried. When he skidded into the emergency drive, hospital staff rushed forward instantly. A nurse yanked open the door while another brought a wheelchair. "How long has the pain been going on?" one asked. 10 minutes, maybe 15, Gabe answered, his words tumbling. She's really early. Preterm labor," the nurse murmured. "Let's move." They whisked Tara inside, and Gabe followed until a pair of double doors slammed shut in his face. He stood alone in the hallway, chest heaving, hands shaking. For the first time since he'd met her, the gravity of losing her hit him like a blow. He sank against the wall, pressing his forehead to his fists, not praying, not speaking, just begging silently for her to survive. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, a doctor approached. "She's in preterm labor," he said. "We're stabilizing her, but the twins need to come out now." "Will she be okay?" "We're doing everything we can." Gabe nodded, unable to speak. The doctor added gently, "You're listed as her emergency contact. You can wait here." He did. He paced. He sat. He stood up again. His legs wouldn't stop trembling. Nurses rushed past, carts rattling, monitors beeping. Every second stretched into an eternity. Then, finally, a nurse approached with a small, tired smile. "She wants to see you." Gabe followed her into a dim recovery room where Tara lay propped up on pillows, pale and exhausted but alive. A soft glow from the bedside monitor illuminated her face. She wasn't alone. Behind a glass wall, 2 tiny incubators held the smallest babies Gabe had ever seen. "The twins," Tara whispered. "A boy and a girl." He approached slowly, afraid even his breath might disturb the fragile peace of the moment. "They're alive," she added, tears gathering. "They came early, but they're fighters." Gabe swallowed hard, his throat burning, just like their mom. She reached for his hand, weakly but intentionally. Her fingers trembled as they curled into his. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Before all of this, I already cared about you. I tried not to. I tried to keep you safe by staying distant, but you kept showing up. You kept choosing me." His chest tightened. She wasn't making a declaration. She was confessing something she had fought against until she no longer could. "Tara," he breathed, kneeling beside her bed. "I don't have anything left except the truth," she said. "And the truth is, I love you, Gabe." He bowed his head, overwhelmed. "You saved me long before I ever saved you. I didn't even know I mattered to anyone until you showed up that night." His voice cracked. "I love you too." They held onto each other, hands intertwined, the hum of machines surrounding them like a fragile lullaby. They couldn't know, that another storm was unfolding across the city at that exact moment. Austin Donovan, shaking with fear and guilt, burst through the doors of the Denver Police Department. He demanded to speak to a detective. He confessed everything. The fraud, the framing, the manipulation, and the suspicion surrounding his father's death. For the first time in years, the truth began to rise to the surface. And Tara Donovan, weak, recovering, but no longer alone, was finally positioned to reclaim her life. The dust of the emergency delivery had barely settled when the legal storm finally broke open. By the time Tara Donovan drifted into her first full sleep since the birth, Denver police, state investigators, and federal auditors were already combing through years of financial records from Donovan Energy and Supply. Austin Donovan's overnight confession ignited everything. Names, transactions, shell companies, false contracts, falsified audits. All of it aligned into a blueprint of deliberate fraud. And at the center of it stood Linda Donovan. Her arrest happened quietly but decisively. Detectives arrived at the Donovan estate at dawn, stepping past the manicured hedges and marble pillars with warrant in hand. Linda answered the door in her silk robe, irritation ready on her tongue until she saw the badges. "Linda Donovan," the lead detective announced, "you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, coercion, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy." Her composure faltered at the edges. By the time they guided her into the car, her mask had shattered entirely. Austin, meanwhile, sat in a small interview room downtown, eyes red, hands shaking as he cooperated fully. Because he'd come forward on his own, and because his testimony was essential to the case, he received a plea deal. Lesser charges, a reduced sentence, mandatory restitution. It wasn't redemption, but it was accountability. Back at Denver Health, Tara healed slowly, her strength returning in quiet increments. The twins, tiny, fragile fighters, stayed in the NICU, tucked inside warm incubators with blinking monitors and soft blue lights. Tara spent hours watching them through the glass, whispering promises about the life she would build for them. Gabe was there for every moment. He visited daily, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times if his warehouse shifts ended early. He brought food she could actually stomach, clean clothes, soft blankets for her bed, tiny stuffed animals for the babies. He walked her slowly down the hallway when her legs trembled, and sat beside her as she learned how to bottle feed the twins under the nurse's supervision. Tara's heart softened in ways she hadn't known were possible. She had fought alone for so long that companionship felt foreign. But Gabe made it feel natural, easy, necessary. And outside the hospital walls, something extraordinary was happening. Daniel Mercer met her in her room one afternoon with a thick folder in hand. "It's official," he told her, voice steady with well-earned satisfaction. "You've been reinstated as the rightful CEO and majority shareholder of Donovan Energy and Supply." Tara's breath caught. Her father's company, taken, twisted, drained, was hers again. "And Gabe," Daniel added, turning to him, "we'll need you in a transitional oversight role. Your notes, your surveillance work, your records, they're now part of the official recovery process. If you're willing." Gabe glanced at Tara. "If she wants me there, I'm in." Tara's smile was soft, full, and threaded with emotion. "I want you there." A week later, during a warm afternoon in the hospital courtyard, gently decorated with winter-tolerant flowers and strings of white lights, Gabe walked beside Tara as she took one of her first long steps outside since giving birth. She moved slowly, recovering but determined, the sunlight brushing her hair with a silvery glow. They sat beneath a canopy of bare branches. Silence settled around them, not empty, but peaceful. Gabe turned to her, his hands trembling slightly. "Tara," he said quietly, "these past weeks you've changed everything for me. I don't know what's coming next, but I know who I want beside me for all of it." Her breath stilled. He lowered to one knee. "Tara Donovan, will you marry me?" A soft gasp escaped her lips, half disbelief, half overwhelming joy. "Yes," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Yes, Gabe. Absolutely yes." Their hands met, fingers intertwined, and for the first time since her world collapsed, Tara felt something she thought she had lost forever. A future. A soft winter sun hung over Denver the morning Gabe Turner finally brought Tara Donovan and their newborn twins home from the hospital. The drive was slow and careful, no storms, No sirens, no fear. Just a quiet road stretching toward a future neither of them had dared imagine weeks earlier. Tara sat in the passenger seat, still weak but glowing with a peaceful exhaustion, her eyes drifting between the infant carriers in the back. The twins slept soundly, tiny chests rising and falling with steady, life-affirming breaths. "You okay?" Gabe asked gently. She nodded. "Better than I've been in years." When they pulled into the parking lot of the Capitol Hill condo, fate offered one final thread of closure. An aging taxi, faded paint, dented bumper, rolled into the space across from them, and stepping out, wearing a worn jacket and a defeated expression, was Sam Peters. For a long moment, Sam squinted at them, confused. Then his face flushed as recognition struck. Gabe, no longer exhausted and beaten down, but steady, confident, standing beside a woman who leaned on him with trust, and two fragile lives he now protected. Sam opened his mouth, maybe to sneer, maybe to apologize, maybe to reclaim the superiority he'd once wielded. But nothing came out. Gabe met his eyes calmly. No anger, no resentment, just a quiet, settled peace. A gentle smile tugged at Gabe's lips, small, kind, final. And then he turned away, guiding Tara toward the stairs. It was over. The chapter with Sam had closed without the need for revenge or argument. Some victories didn't require words. Life moved slowly but steadily in the months that followed. Tara regained her strength, spending long hours in the condo's sunlit living room, holding the twins against her chest while reviewing recovery plans for Donovan energy and supply. The company was stabilizing, carefully, methodically, under the guidance of Daniel Mercer and a new leadership team built on trust instead of corruption. Gabe, new to corporate structures but brilliant at logistics, joined the team officially. He oversaw restructuring operations, coordinating departments, tightening oversight, and building internal controls that kept the company safe from future manipulation. His practical mind and lived humility grounded the entire process. And Tara? She grew stronger every day, physically, emotionally, spiritually. The shadows of her past didn't disappear, but they no longer defined her. The twins thrived. Their early fragility transformed into healthy, bright-eyed energy. Nurses and doctors called them miracle babies, fighters from their first breath. When spring warmed the air, Tara and Gabe held a small wedding ceremony in a quiet Denver garden. Nothing extravagant, just a circle of a few close friends, a scattering of white chairs, and sunlight threading through the branches above them. Tara wore a simple ivory dress. Gabe wore a charcoal suit with sleeves slightly too long. The twins slept in a double stroller nearby, swaddled in matching blankets. When they exchanged vows, Tara's voice trembled. "You saved my life," she whispered. Gabe shook his head slowly. "You gave me one." Their kiss was soft, honest, full of calm joy. A family built not from tradition, but from survival, healing, and choice. Later that evening, after the guests drifted away and the twins settled into sleep, Gabe stepped onto the condo balcony. The city lights shimmered across the skyline, each one blinking like a small promise. He leaned on the railing and closed his eyes. Mrs. Evelyn Brooks's voice returned to him, warm, steady, filled with quiet certainty. "Your good day will come." And then Tara's trembling whisper from the stormy night they first met. "Your life is about to change. Don't push it away." He opened his eyes, staring at the home behind him, the wife he loved, the babies he would raise, the life he had somehow stumbled into. Both prophecies had come true, and for the first time in his memory, Gabe Turner felt completely, unquestioningly whole.